Hello. All right, this is the video recapping. I guess this video is a bit late. I wish I had done it sooner, but I was just too busy. But this is the video basically recapping the Fed press conference, what we saw. Powell finally addressed the big fart in the room, which was the high inflation numbers. And obviously, the conclusion from the press conference was that he basically downplayed it completely, right? Um, he completely downplayed the whole inflation number, and consequently, we're seeing the effects in the market right now, gold shooting up and the dollar just kind of plummeting. So I didn't think too much about how I'm going to really structure this video or anything. I'm really just going to kind of leave my thoughts out there, kind of about like the key takeaways from the press conference, what Powell said, particularly in that opening statement, and what it subsequently could mean for dollar and gold over the coming weeks. It was certainly a um, important press conference in terms of what he said, and it certainly will probably have an effect on the market for the next coming weeks until really probably the big press conference, I think, at the end of August. Um, but this was kind of the big move that we have been waiting to happen. He addressed the inflation. He addressed the various economic data that have been coming out, and basically, it kind of led to a negative dollar. So what were really the key things he said? The first thing was that regarding inflation was, he really addressed it more than anything as purely transitory, again, despite it being so high. And while he did kind of mention that if inflation continues to go above expectations, or beyond expectations, that, sooner or later they will have to address it more seriously with some sort of actual policy action. But he said at the moment, inflation is totally where it's expected. But everybody knows that it's bullshit, right? Even the forecast for the CPI report this past month was lower than expected, right? Or like lower, it was supposed to be lower than the month before. So obviously the dude's lying through his fucking teeth, right? We know that, right? We know that this dude's a constant liar. Um, but for him to just completely disregarded, especially after the last press or the press conference. I think it was like two press conferences ago, whenever it was, when he actually really brought up raising interest rates sooner rather than later and all those things. This really was a complete revert back to the old kind of narrative that he was pushing, that he's been pushing for months, right? Inflation's transitory. We don't need to worry. The economy is really struggling, and we still need to really help it because it's still unbalanced. Okay, so that was the first real major thing, that he basically completely downplayed inflation. And we are really seeing now the results of that when it comes to the price of gold, right? Because as I've mentioned before, it's not that gold goes up when inflation goes up, but typically gold will go down because there's this expectation that if inflation is high, the government will do something about it in terms of fiscal policy or monetary policy, right? Um, Increasing interest rates, whatever. Now we're looking at the day chart here, but this is really reflecting now what he's saying, the fact that they are not going to address it. And they're probably not going to address it anytime soon. AKA what was mentioned 2 months ago about, potentially increasing interest rates sooner rather than later, that was just all smoke. Doesn't mean shit. Okay. So consequently, we're looking very positive for gold as a result, right? Okay. The dollar is going to continue to start heading back down. It really looks like this channel that we drew out yesterday in the video may come to fruition. I would not be surprised if we're starting to look at a profit-taking level um, at around here, right? This kind of channel, this being a resistance and a potential profit-taking level for shorts. It looks like we're going to be trending that way over the coming weeks. And especially given what he said, given the kind of impact what his words have on the market, price action throughout the next coming weeks, which is going to resemble something like, maybe like this or whatever, would not be surprising whatsoever. Meanwhile, with gold, as a result of what he's been saying. Seeing price action on the day chart, which maybe goes towards 1850, back down, this kind of thing going up, whatever, would also not be surprising as a result, okay? What he was saying in terms of inflation was really, really, really ultimately negative for the dollar. And his words, I think, obviously have really kind of changed the trend again. And we're expecting now a bearish trend for the dollar over the coming weeks and a bullish trend in terms of gold over the coming weeks. What's some other key things that Powell mentioned? Another key thing that he also really mentioned that I found interesting is that he addressed how a lot of the economic recovery data, which has been very positive, has only really been benefiting certain percentages of the population, but still a lot of other types of people have really, really not benefited. And therefore, we so it's kind of like a sign that the economy still really needs to recover a lot more. You mentioned how African Americans were being really affected, Hispanics, so forth, people in the service sector, whatever, they're still heavily affected. And obviously, I guess a lot of that is kind of true, but the when you read in between the lines, what he's really just saying is that, right, from like if we want to have this kind of realistic perspective, what he's saying is that we need to continue printing money. We need to continue pumping money. We need to continue keeping interest rates low. Um, we need to continue propping up the economy because it doesn't matter what all this positive economic data is saying. You guys can pretty much ignore it because over the next coming weeks and months, it doesn't really mean anything. We expect this positive economic data to continue coming out, but we're not going to change our stance because other parts of the economy still need assistance, right? So again, that kind of when you read in between the lines about that with his statement, you realize that this is only positive for gold and also negative for the dollar, right? Very, very negative for the dollar, right? Because there's no reason to raise interest rates anytime soon. They're going to continue with their same policies, right? Which is just weakening the dollar, weakening the dollar, weakening the dollar, increasing the money supply. Okay. Um, and I think investors, after that initial shock 2 months ago, and seeing now the way that price is moving and the way they've reacted, I think they're just reading through his bullshit at this point. And I think everybody's kind of just reading through his bullshit. And he was always bullshitting, but he had never made a strong statement like that previously 2 months ago. And now, even though he did talk about, asset purchases and like how they've been having serious discussions and all this kind of stuff in the press conference, he did mention this. Um, I think everybody just sees through his bullshit, right? Everybody just kind of sees through his bullshit. Um, the last, I think, really key takeaway about the press conference, at least for me, okay, um, was also the fact that he, I mean, just the fact that he really touched on the Delta variant. I think although he kind of downplayed the potential negative effects of the Delta variant, particularly on the U.S. economy and how it shouldn't affect the economic recovery too much, so forth, so forth, so forth. I think the fact that he even mentioned it, again, kind of sparked that fear button a little bit among investors, right? It's like, okay, this is starting to get really serious also for the U.S., despite the fact that the vaccination rollout program in the States has been extremely strong. If Powell is mentioning this, it's obviously something of concern for them, for the Fed, okay? It's definitely going to be a concern, especially if it starts to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and there's still a portion of the population that doesn't want to get vaccinated, or there's, people who refuse to do it, all these different things, right? So the fact that he even addressed it, you know, and spent a bit of time on it, despite the fact that he downplayed it, it shows you that they're focused on it and they're wary of it. And they're ultimately probably a little bit concerned about it. Little bit of concern equals a lot of fear sometimes in markets. And I think that's what we could be seeing here as well, right? So all of these different things, these kind of three takeaways that I've pointed out here, um, they ultimately have led to this kind of reaction where, especially in gold, when we're looking at the hour chart, um, just an unbelievable run up here, right? An unbelievable run up. And honestly, speaking, I guess the key question if you're trying to trade this, and at least for me as well, because this is a nice move. I actually had a buy limit when we got the initial breakout. I had a buy limit set, but it didn't trigger, so I missed out on this run. It is what it is, but I guess the key level more than anything is trying to figure out, well, when, where is the profit level, um, or where are people going to start taking profits, right? When we, sorry, trying to get rid of this line here. Where are people going to start to look to taking profits, right? Once we have this initial run up, because again, things don't just go up like this forever, right? And typically, especially when we're talking about longing positions, those kind of short squeezes don't happen nearly as much as kind of like when you have those like long liquidations and you get those huge dumps in gold. That's why they say like gold goes up in steps, but dumps when it comes back down. Um, guess the key question really is like, where is the next profit level going to be taking? And I mean, I think what Powell said in terms of like just the impact of his words, in terms of affecting the overall trend for both the dollar, right, which I could easily see trying to go back down towards these 90, the 90 point level on the DXY. Given that we have this kind of room here, also we have the initial 90.7 level, which was really strong before. Just given the amount of room we still have to go there, um, seeing gold trying to potentially get to 1850 at this point is certainly not out of the realms of expectation. To see some potential profit taking happening there, I think that's probably where some gold bulls are really looking at, especially if you got in at around 1805, 1810 or so forth on this bullish uptrend here. So I think the key level really right now is to look between that 1845 to 1853, 1854 price range, see some profit taking there. And then once the price gets there, it's important then to start kind of judging how's the momentum going? How far away are we also from the next Fed press conference where um, trends could potentially change again, right? Especially given inflation. What is the next month's CPI report going to look like? But hitting that 1850 level as of now could definitely happen in the coming days, okay? Or, in the next 1-2 weeks max. So I would definitely be looking for that. Once we get to that position there, um, definitely reevaluate. But as of now, for me personally, am definitely going to look at potentially buying some pullbacks. Hopefully there's going to be some sort of pullback here, at least on the hour chart, maybe back to 1820 or those types of levels. Hopefully trying to get in at that place and then hopefully continue to run up this bullish uptrend up to potentially the 1845 level, 18 kind of 50 level. That's kind of how I see the market right now. But let me know what you guys think. So anyway, sorry for this kind of rambling. I just decided to do this video last minute because I've been busy all day. And I also just got to watch the Powell press conference. Let me know if you guys agree, if you even followed what I was saying. Consider giving me a thumbs up. Leave a comment if you want to ask a question. And take it easy, guys.